Good morning.
Welcome to another episode. This time, we'll be taking a look at my favourite Namco arcade games. Nakamura Seisakusho were founded in 1955 and spent the first few years operating amusement rides. In 1959, they formed a partnership with Walt Disney, which enabled them to begin developing mechanical arcade games such as Periscope in 1965. In 1974, the company acquired the Japanese division of Atari before being renamed to Namco in 1977. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Namco played a huge part in both the arcade and home console market, developing and publishing some of the most popular games of that era. In 2005, Namco merged with toy manufacturers Bandai and continued to be a key name in the video game industry. So let's head back to 1988 as we begin in a mansion of horrors. Splatter House is an ultra-violent, horror-themed beat-em-up which sees you take on the role of mask-wearing Rick. This is a basic side-scroller, but the setting and enemy design really made this one stand out at the time. Whether using your feet, your fists, or an old wooden plank to defeat your enemies, you'll need nerves of steel to conquer this nightmare. In 1994, Namco released Point Blank, a two-player light gun shooter packed with competitive mini-games. Each stage has its own theme, and these include accuracy, intelligence, and speed challenges. These can often produce hilarious results as you frantically attempt to shoot the correct target on screen. The visuals are vibrant, and the game is full of character. It's a different take on the more traditional light gun games of the time, and it's great fun in two-player mode. Steel Gunner arrived in arcades in 1990 and was the first light gun game that Namco produced. The game has a futuristic theme as you take on the role of two police officers in armoured mech suits. The visuals were impressive for the time, with great use of scrolling and scaling effects. Unfortunately, neither Steel Gunner or its 1992 sequel received home ports. Time for an absolute classic at number 7, it's Dig Dug. You'll be digging underground as you attempt to destroy all of the enemies on screen in each stage. The gameplay is very addictive, and it can be a real challenge to line up the rocks to crush the enemies for extra points. Dig Dug is a timeless Namco classic and one that is always a joy to go back to. The 3D fighting genre really began to pick up the pace in the mid to late 90s, and when Tekken III arrived in 1997, it set a new standard. Unlike the first two games in the series, Tekken 3 utilised Namco's System 12 board. The game's roster featured over 20 characters, with the majority of them being new to the franchise. Tekken 3 went head-to-head with Sega's Virtua Fighter 3 and went on to become a huge success across the globe, with the PlayStation port selling over 1 million copies in Japan on release day. At number 5, it's another classic from the mid-80s, Rolling Thunder. This fast-paced run-and-gun adventure inspired some of my favourite arcade games, and provides a challenge to anyone looking to take on Geldra. You'll jump between platforms, duck behind boxes, and open doors to find new weapons. It's a game that causes an incredible amount of frustration, but I always find myself using just one more credit to get that little bit further. In 1983, Namco released their follow-up to Galaxian. Galaga is one of the most iconic space shooters, sitting proudly alongside Space Invaders as one of the most instantly recognisable games in the genre. Dodging enemy fire, avoiding collisions, and getting caught in tractor beams. That's Galaga. It's a game that I always enjoy going back to, and it's one of the greatest arcade games in history. Soulcalibur arrived in arcades in 1998, and although it's not a patch on the Dreamcast version, it still holds its own as a fantastic fighting game. This was the second game in the series, following on from 1995's Soul Edge, and introduced 8-way movement, allowing the player to move freely. There is a varied roster of characters, each with a unique weapon and fighting style. Although there have been some amazing sequels to Soulcalibur, this one remains my favourite in the series. Just missing out on top spot is one of the best light gun shooters ever released, 1998's Time Crisis 2. When a plot to launch a nuclear satellite is uncovered, Keith Martin and Robert Baxter are sent out to take down the Starline network. This sequel built on the first game, introducing cooperative play with the ability to provide covering fire. The game retains the foot pedal system that allows the player to avoid taking damage. An enhanced port was released alongside the G-Con 2 gun for the PS2 in 2001. This version featured additional modes and improved visuals. The last time I played the arcade version was at Arcade Club in Bury. It's still such a fantastic game to play through, which was obviously helped by having unlimited credits. It just had to be, didn't it? One of the greatest games of all time, and one I never tire of. Pac-Man arrived in arcades in 1980, and became one of the best-selling games of all time. Navigating mazes, avoiding ghosts, and eating fruit was so popular that it led to what seems like an infinite number of sequels and spin-offs. He's still one of gaming's most recognisable mascots, with merchandise, movie appearances and Namco-themed arcades providing a constant reminder that pac-mania isn't fading away anytime soon. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below and subscribe to the channel for more retro gaming content.